Okay, let's get started. So hopefully you have already fused your neckline pieces, your interfacing. I did use Pilon SF 101, but we're going to do these first 4 steps. After you fused, go ahead and stay stitch. It says crimp the neckline. I'm just going to stay stitch, which means I will use a 1.5 stitch length on this section of pattern piece 3 and 4, and also stay stitch around the neckline for these are the back pattern pieces 5 and 6, and then you will go ahead and put in your darts as shown here, and then you will go ahead and put in your fisheye darts. Now when putting in your fisheye darts, it is recommended to start from the top and go down. Let me see if I can switch this so you can see. From the top down and from the bottom up. I've seen that on many patterns. Or as shown here, you can also just stitch from the top to the opposite end and back stitch and clip the threads, and then press the darts toward the center. So whichever works best for you. I've done it both ways with fisheye darts, and quite honestly, I don't really see the difference. So go ahead and follow the directions here and put in sew in your fisheye darts, because these pieces are different colors. I do have both of my machines set up, so I won't record this piece only because I'll be switching between machines here. But go ahead and complete step 1, step 2, stay stitching, step 3, which is the bust dart, and also step 4, which is the back fisheye darts. And I will show you what that looks like when I am done. Okay, so if you're like me and you are color blocking this dress, I am just so you know, I did mark on my pieces what color fabric needs to go to what piece. I highly suggest you doing that, and I'm kind of leaving it pinned until things get merged together. But anyway, just a little tip if you're doing color blocking, it helps me. But anyway, we have put our darts in. You iron darts going down towards the hem. We've stabilized our neckline. Not sure if you can see that because it's the same color thread. We got our fisheye darts in, and everything is pressed towards the center back. And this is also for the other side of the front bodice. We have our dart in and we press down. We've also, which again you probably cannot see, stabilized the neckline because my thread is matching, and also the other back. And so now we're going to move into what they want to do. And I did say this in my intro that I was not going to do the lap zip. However, in my haste to move forward, I forgot to make the adjustment to take out the lap zip. So I'm just going to do the lap zip. We'll see how I like it once it's done, it's in. I'm sure I can probably fudge it and figure it out, but if I mess something up, I don't have enough fabric to recut out any of these pieces. So I'm just going to roll with it. So okay, so what we're going to do is the instructions call for you. Hopefully you have been marking all of your markings from your pattern piece. So that's what you see here. There's a center back line there that they will have you to mark in. What they want you to do is go ahead and add interfacing to this back piece. See, you have this little lip here. So you are adding interfacing all the way down here on both back pieces, and that's pieces 5 and 6. And then what you're going to do is stitch the center back seam, leaving an opening above the large dot. And so you are, and I've marked, I put an X, my dot is an X that I put here. And then you're going to press the center back seam allowances open all the way down here. You're going to press all of this open, and then you're going to turn in 3/4 on the right side opening edge, press, turn in the left back. I will show you that when I get to it. That is actually part D of step 5. For the most part, this pattern is going to look to be coming together pretty easily. But let's go ahead and do steps A, B, and C. And then we'll come back to D, because then after that we'll be inserting the zipper. Okay, so you should have added your strip of interfacing where the lines were marked. And so this is the wrong side facing up. So the wrong side facing up, on the right hand side, you're pressing down this side at 3/4 of an inch. And the instructions there have you go ahead and join below that dot. So down here you go ahead and sew the seam allowance, but you left all of this open. So on the right hand side, go ahead and turn this over 3/4 of an inch and press. And on the left hand side, which is also interface, then you turn that over 1 inch and press. And now we're going to flip this over to the right side and begin the installation of our zipper. Okay, now this is the right side of our fabric. We're working with the right side of the fabric, and we're working with the right side back. So what you want to do is, and I've never installed a lap zip before, but we're going to give this a go. So usually for me, when I'm working with zippers, I always use a zipper longer than what the garment calls for, maybe by an inch or two, probably 2 to 3 inches more, just to give me some wiggle room if I mess up or something. I don't want to get the exact length the pattern calls for. But what you want to do is, and I guess maybe I am happy I'm doing the lap zip, because my orange doesn't quite match. It's not as dark, but that's okay because you won't see it. But anyway, so the top of the zip, if you can tell, is matching to the top, the neckline there. That's a little excess interface now I have to cut off. But at any rate, you lay that into the right hand side here, and it suggests that you base this down, and then using a zipper foot, go back and sew right next to the edge here, all the way down. And remember, this side is out of the way, so that's why you don't see this, because this is out of the way. And so what you want to do is go ahead and remember the circle is down here. So what you want to do is, you can either hand baste, that's a suggestion. Go ahead and hand baste this down and then go back and stitch it down. I am going to use my Wonder Tape and tape it down, and then use my zipper foot and go ahead and attach this side of the zipper. So once that's done, then I will come back and show you what that looks like, and then we'll be working with this side of the zipper. Okay, I wanted to pop in and show as I'm installing the zip on the right hand side. So I've already begun at the top, and I'm sewing all the way down. Now what I find, just so you know, I'm using this type of foot, is normally this foot is a piping foot, or a close binding or something like that foot, where you can really get close in without disturbing the zip. And so I use it to do zippers as well. And so that's what I'm using, because I'm able to stay right at this edge here all the way down and insert this zipper. So I just wanted to show that what I use to put in my zipper. I do have a regular zipper foot, and I also have an invisible zip foot, but this foot I find can be a little clunky with these two sides here, these little lip parts, and I got this, I always get because I have an older machine, but sewingpartsonline.com is usually where I get my zipper foots to go with my older machine, which is a pace setter by Brother. And so this machine is like $12 13 years old, so I can still find parts for this particular machine on that website. So just something I just wanted to share with you all, just in case you do find this to be a little clunky to use, that you might want to use something like this if you have something similar that you can use, and then use that, because it will make installing something like this a little easier. Okay, so you have now inserted your zipper. We're still looking at the right side of the fabric. So this side is in, as I just showed you. It is now stitched into place. Now what you're going to do is take this side and you're going to overlap it about 1/8 of an inch. And I started it here so you can see. So it's just overlapped about 1/8 of an inch. And what's going to happen is this side is going to be sewn against this zipper piece. You will not be able to see this when you're sewing it down. But they want you to, the instructions instruct you to go ahead and pin all of this down. I think what I'd rather do, because I don't want my fabric to shift, I think instead of using my Wonder Tape, I'm going to hand baste all of this in place first. Just so, because what you're going to do is put the, because you can't really see. So, and you want to make sure that you're hitting the right area on this side. You can feel it. You can most certainly feel where the zipper is, where the zipper teeth are. And then you know you need to go over to the left hand side as you're sewing. And because what you're going to do is sew all the way down. And I put this here. I'll make sure that this is nice and lined up. But I put this here. I can take it out because I wanted to show you where it ends. And then you're going to pivot towards this point down here. So you're going to start up at the top. Sew around, you can't see it, but you're going to sew down here down to this point, and then that will complete inserting the zipper. I will show you what that looks like once it's done. Okay, I've turned my bodice piece on the side just so you can see what I was saying. I just did a really loose hand baste all the way down here, so I know this will not shift. And then I'm gonna go ahead and sew starting here all the way down, and then pivot, it says, to the about right there is where you want to pivot, and then the back of our lap zip would be done. All right. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I gave mine a good press. And so once you have sewn it in, when you open it up, you really should have caught the edge of the other side that you folded under. So you shouldn't see any, all of that should be caught. So when you open this up, it's nice and clean like this. And so I'm just gonna sew this, close this up. Now, one of the things I did not think of, but I am going to do to this side, I don't have any bias binding, which is what I would prefer. I'm turning this over now to the wrong side. Here you have this all exposed over here. I do not like that. And unfortunately, like I said, I didn't think ahead here, but you can go ahead and just serge this, make it nice and clean. Or if you have bias binding, go ahead and add your bias binding to this side. So bias binding will look so much better than serging, but that's just my personal opinion. Like I said, I don't have any matching bias binding. I am just going to serge this, and which will work, but I just think had I thought in advance, I would have maybe plan for some bias binding, or at least cleaned up these edges so these aren't exposed like this. I'm not so concerned about this side, so I'll leave it as is. But this side, see, is just a little bit wonky. I'm just gonna clean that up with my serger. And yeah, so now grab your front skirt and grab your back skirt, because you're going to be attaching to this back bodice your back skirt. Now, hopefully you have been laying all your pieces flat because things were cut on the bias. You don't want anything to stretch out. So go ahead and stay stitch. You'll get your same thing as we did with our neckline. You want to stay stitch the upper edge of the back skirt, and then you're going to sew the skirt to the back. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so again, as I suggested, yeah, bias binding tape would make this look a whole lot better. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So you have attached your skirt back piece to the back bodice piece, and then you can serge and press up your seams, and then this piece for now can be set off to the side. Then grab your front bodice pieces. You have your left and right if you're color blocking two different colors, and what you're going to do is stitch from that dot all the way down, and then you can serge, clean that off, or you can also these fabrics are two different weights, but you can also French seam any of these seams along the way if you like, make it look even cleaner. But go ahead and stitch, French seam, whatnot, serge, and then press your seam up towards the opposite bodice. So that is how this looks. And then go ahead and grab your skirt front and the overskirt seams, because what you're gonna do with the overskirt seams, and it's a really long piece, you're going to, and I'll show you what this looks like once it's done. I'm just using this as an example. You're going to end up turning it up by it says 1/4 of an inch all the way around from the side, all the way around. This is the front bodice piece, but you're doing that on the skirt, the front skirt piece. Now the mistake I have made is I actually did not cut my top piece at the overlay piece, and so mine are both the same length, which means I am going to have to shorten this dress by quite a bit, but we'll see how that looks towards the end. But I'll show you what that looks like once it's together, because once you have turned up the 1/4 inch all the way around and then stitched it down and then put it on top of your skirt piece, and then you're going to stitch it on the side and at the top edge. But I will show you what that looks like when I come back. Okay, so grab your front skirt and the overlay pieces. If you're color blocking, there will be two separate colors, and as I said, I think I mentioned earlier, I accidentally cut these out on the same excuse me, on the same line, and so for my piece here, my overlay piece, I'm making a bigger hem. I've stitched up about 1.5 inches. And what you're doing is, this is the wrong side, you're just gonna stitch all the way to the end and then turn the side seam. I serged it just so to make it a little easier. This fabric is a little bit more lightweight, but anyway, you turn this over by 1/4 of an inch and then you stitch, and then what you're going to do is pin this part here, the skirt front overlay, onto the skirt front, matching notches at the upper seam and along the side seam. So I will show you what that looks like, and then we'll base that in place. So now your overlay piece is on top of your skirt front piece, and what you're going to do is make sure you are matching your notches. As you can see there, you have 2 notches over here. This side, the right hand side, this is facing up, will not meet to the end, so that's fine, because what you're going to do is these sides meet. You're going to stitch these on top of one another. So you the instructions say to use a stitch to go ahead and base these in place. So you're just basting all of these in place, and then you want to stay stitch this piece all the way so it doesn't continue to stretch out of shape. Might be a little difficult, but make sure you stay stitched this top piece together, but you're just basting this side piece here. And then what you're going to do is with the bodice front and this front right sides together, you're going to pin this all in place and then stitch it together. I will show you what that looks like when I come back. Okay, so once you have your overlay piece, you baste it down, you've stay stitched along the top. You're going to take your bodice piece right sides together and you're going to pin all along the top skirt and that bodice bottom piece. You're going to baste all, you're going to stitch actually all of that together at, it says 5/8 inch. You do have the option to top stitch as well, but you're going to go ahead and stitch all of this together. And once that's done and you serge, or if you're doing French seams, once that is done, take your entire front piece once it's all together and your entire back piece. Now the instructions say to first do the sides together and then the shoulders. I am actually going to stabilize my shoulder seams first and then sew my shoulder seams together first, making sure my seams on the sides match up. But I will show you that once I get to it. So this is what your front will all look like once it's been combined. You have your color blocking if you've color blocked. And so this is the front, and what I have done is just serge and then you press the seam up. Then the next thing you want to do is combine your back full piece. And what I've done here on mine is I just put some woven stay tape at the shoulder seams, just because this fabric is a little lightweight and this my pink is a lightweight, so I just want to make sure that my shoulders are stabilized. So I am going to actually pin the shoulders and the sides together to see where everything fits is sitting, because after that you will do a fit check, and you're really just supposed to baste the sides together and then do your fit check. So baste your sides together first, and then go back and do the actual seam. But I will show you that once I've put these pieces together.